Wonderful. Good, because I just lost my script. Good morning, everyone. My name is Brian Moffitt. I'd like to welcome you all to the January 26, 2024, I'm still getting used to saying that, Asheville Downtown Commission meeting. The Asheville Downtown Commission was created by the City Council for the sustainability and continued development of downtown, a vital urban center of Western North Carolina's economic, cultural, and visitor activity. The Downtown Commission provides City Council with recommendations on downtown policies and initiatives. In addition, downtown commissioners currently fill 3 out of 9 seats of the city's Design Review Committee, I guess that's still right, which reviews development projects within the Central Business District, the River Arts District, and hotel projects outside of those areas. The Downtown Commission also has the opportunity to provide input on projects outside of the scope of design review. We are streaming live on our Virtual Engagement Hub, which is accessible through the Virtual Engagement Hub link on the front page of the city website, and also linked on the committee page, also available on YouTube. I think that's also correct. For anyone out there with us today, welcome. At this time, I will do a roll call. I'm just going to start on that end and go around. As I say your name, please say hello. Nora Edwards. Hello. Hayden Clemens, our Asheville Downtown Association representative for her first meeting. Yes, hello. By the way, speak into the mic. Thank you. I heard you, or I saw you, or something. And with us for his first meeting, Billy Cooney. Hello. Good morning. Ricardo Sejo. Hello. Robin Raines. Hello. Jefferson Ellis. Good morning. Megan.
Good morning.
And also with us for his first meeting, Stu Helm. Hello. And then our staff. Say hello, staff. Clay, Dana, Ellie. Hi. Thank you. Welcome, and welcome to all the assorted folks. We actually have people in the crowd today. That's nice. Our agenda review, we have downtown cleanliness and safety updates with Assistant City Manager and, can I just say Chief Lamb? Yeah, okay, Chief Lamb. Yeah, I'm still getting used to it, but it's nice. And we're going to discuss, briefly get a update on the Business Improvement District, and we're going to do officer elections, and then we're going to do our normal updates and reports. We need to approve the minutes that you should all have received, the draft action minutes of our December 15th, 2023 meeting. Are there any revisions or notes, or do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second? I think Ricardo beat you. Okay. All in favor, say aye. 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 Any opposed? That motion carries. To the best of my knowledge, we did not receive any public comment.
Correct.
At this time. Very good. So our first item of business.
However, if there's any in-person.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I should be better at this. If there's any public comment that you'd like to make ahead of any of our items? No? Okay. Well, thank you for being here anyway. So our first item of business would be our downtown cleanliness and safety updates. Ben, I think you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Downtown Commission. Happy to be here again. I feel like, is this microphone higher now? Is it the same one? It feels like it's taller. I feel like I used to have to always lean down more, so that's
getting
good.
Older.
I think it is, yeah. I feel like that's good. Again, appreciate you having me here today. I'm actually here with, I call him Chief Lamb, so that's a tough job, so if you're doing it, I'm going to call you Chief. But Dana, do we have a slide deck? Do I need to pull it up? Or? Okay.
Oh, that's not.
Yeah, I don't see that.
I saw you had it too. Gremlins.
So I only have a few slides today, so I'm going to be relatively brief. And I know Chief Lamb, I think, has more to cover than I do, and quite frankly, you probably want to hear from him more than you do me anyways, and that's okay. I'm going to touch on some of our public investment to support downtown. I want to talk about the budget process. That's probably the main thing I want to talk about today. And then, of course, after my presentation, or even after Chief Lamb's, I'm happy to answer any questions. So a couple of things. Let's talk about kind of what's happening in downtown. And I know that you've heard this before. perhaps our new member. First of all, welcome to our 3 new members. I'm
Thank you.
happy to have you here, and certainly feel free to stop me and ask any questions at any time. And I've even talked about some of this, but I really just want to give a little bit of an update. So our downtown cleanliness contract, as the commission knows, it's been more than 10 years now. The city actually contracts out a number of downtown services. That helps our staff. We don't have the capacity to do all that internally. And typically, you can see on the contract, it generally covers litter, weekday litter and trash collection, regular pressure, and that's loose litter, kind of loose trash, and then regular pressure washing, and of course, weed control. We've just renewed that for another year, so that'll be in place for kind of the next spring, summer, fall season. One thing I want to note on that contract that I think is important, and we've learned this, and I think the 60-day initiative really helped us learn, and we're continuing to evolve, but traditionally that contract's been very kind of routine-based, so we're going to pressure wash this street 6 times a year on these dates, and it's very kind of formulaic. I think that's important for predictability in the contracting and the cleanliness. The thing that we've learned, and what I think is interesting about the contract, is we've kind of discovered this idea of having like hotspot cleaning. So I think our ability to be nimble and to respond to where the need is something we've really began to understand a lot more, and that's why it's not listed up there. One of the things that we started doing with this contract is we have our contractor able to respond where there's need. So if there's a particular part of downtown or an area that seems to be experiencing more trash or cleanliness problems, we can kind of deploy that contractor to that area on some sort of schedule. So I think our ability to adapt with our contracts and even our own services has been a really informative learning process for us, but I think the chief's going to talk about that a little bit, how you can use data and try to be a little more nimble to try to address needs, and I think that's how the city's beginning to do things more. Go ahead.
How do you define a hotspot? Does that come in through the app, city staff?
Either way, it's really, it can be the app, but it's really more probably a reflection of like ADA. Like I think it's a little easier. I mean, apps tend to be one-off complaints, but yes, we look at the data. If we see if the data in the app is continuing to be at a certain spot, we can identify that. But it's probably more a reflection of kind of our boots on the ground and our community contacts. I'll give a good example, like under the Lexington Bridge. That's been a challenge, over the past year. What we've done with the contract is we actually deploy that contractor to that particular location on a higher frequency. And while it's not perfect, I think it's looked better in the past year, our ability to manage that. So that's just something I just want to highlight in that. And I hope that as we continue to renew that contract, we can begin to look at cleanliness a little more data-driven and a little more kind of nimble in terms of our response. Okay. Solicitation ordinance, we've got brochures. I think we've got some at the ADA offices. We're getting those around, trying to make sure that people understand kind of what the regulations are around solicitation and kind of what you can do as perhaps somebody that's being solicited. So hopefully that education campaign's making some progress. I know we've got more work to do on that, and partnerships will be important. Parking garage has been an issue. We've talked about this a lot. I am happy to say that we have our security contract beginning in the month of February, and what that does, it'll have a 2-person team 24/7 that'll be monitoring and visiting the parking decks. Hopefully that improves safety first and foremost, but also hopefully that also allows us to improve cleanliness too. I think a presence helps deter cleanliness issues, and I think helps us identify those faster. So again, excited about that contract coming into place. Hot topic, downtown restrooms. This commission's talked about this a lot. I think the 7 years I've been here, we've talked about downtown restrooms. We have a budget in place for it's a Portland Louisa type of restroom, but this will be, right now the plan is there's a portable potty, porta-john, that's located at the Rankin Avenue transit stop on the outside of the parking deck there on Rankin, and that will be replaced with this permanent fixture. It's actually semi-permanent. We don't plan to do this, but the Portland Louisa fixture, we can place the bathroom there, but if 5 years from now we don't need it there, we can actually move it. I don't think that'll be the case, but it is an option. And what's important about what makes this bathroom different and I think is really important, is it is a facility that is installed with maintenance in mind. So it's a facility that the way it's designed, it has fixture types that are durable. So hopefully, I don't think you'll be able to rip the toilet off the wall with the Portland Loo. If you did, that would be incredible. But the finishes and things allow us to maintain that better and clean it. Also, if you've seen pictures, it has some degree of openness to it. Now, you can't see anybody using it, but also it's not a hidden spot necessarily. So I think it would, hopefully deter activities from happening in the restroom. That's not to say they won't, but I think it's really built for maintenance and durability in mind. We have other bathrooms in downtown. As you well know, the 29 Haywood restrooms are a great example of a restroom that we ended up closing. There's a distinction that I have to note about that. 29 Haywood it's like the bathroom here in City Hall. It's not made for durability. It has normal fixtures. So it does, from a maintenance perspective and our need to put eyes on that restroom, that has a lot more need than, say, a Portland Loo would. So not all restrooms are equal, so I think we know that. But one of the things we've talked to Hayden about is are there partnership opportunities to allow us to reopen 29 Haywood? And that's something we're going to continue to explore and work towards. The other thing that's interesting is, and those aren't the only 2 bathrooms in downtown. There's bathrooms in this building that are public. So I think part of this as we move into next year is, again, just a broader assessment is what does the restroom environment look like in downtown? How do we maintain those in a way, and how do we make sure people understand what's open and when? So again, there's a bigger picture to the downtown restroom situation. And then finally, solid waste master plan. Jess Foster, our Public Works Division Manager for sanitation, she always says that she loves to talk trash, and so this is your opportunity to talk trash. Have an RFP out, we got good response, so we've got enough bids. That's always a challenge for us, is literally getting enough bids, but we got enough bids. So I'm excited that we're gonna be able to kick this off in the spring. We'll have a contractor on board, and we're gonna talk trash about downtown, and that's really important. Any questions on recent and upcoming investments?
Can you tell us a little bit, just for public consumption more, the parking garage lot security, generally like which lots, garages obviously we kind of get, but when you're talking about lot security, what lots and what kind of security, what level of security are they providing?
So the decks are the priority. So number one is going to be try to have presence in those decks. I do think the contract, and I think this is where it's going to take some time to figure this out. The contract does provide, I believe it provides for security at surface lots, right? But I think that part of the need is to try to, again, be nimble in where do we need this? Let's not go to surface lots where we don't have issues. Let's try to focus that security contract where the need is. It's unarmed security, correct? Make sure, Chief, do you know it's unarmed security? So they're not armed. So if there's a situation that escalates or requires a law enforcement presence, they will contact our police department.
Okay.
But again, I view this as really maybe more of a deterrent to things and a presence.
Is that contract just security, or is there any additional cleaning happening?
It is just security.
So is there any additional cleaning happening in the
They will not clean, no.
No, not that, but
yeah.
In another way?
No, there's not.
There's a newish pressure washing contract for garage staples.
Yeah, they have some pressure washing that exists in the garages. But again, that's going to be kind of routine, and I would say that's more similar to our downtown cleanliness contract. But yes, but I do hope the presence can help with cleanliness. Yeah, obviously, that's part of the goal. So,
Okay. Any other questions for Ben regarding any of these updates?
He has more slides.
I'm going to get fast on the rest of these. That was the one I wanted to focus on. Communication enhancements. We have this newsletter that comes out. I know you all are signed up for it. I hope our new members are as well. And Dana really does a lot of work on that, so I want to thank Dana for that. And of course, our CAPE department. But the important thing about the monthly newsletter is we are trying really hard to have new information in that newsletter. I think one of the things that this body gave us feedback on the 60-day initiative is that I think it kind of felt like it was a lot of the same thing over and over. So we do have standing information in this newsletter, but we're making an effort to try to have new information in that. So if you haven't read this month's, please do. Open to feedback on that. I think this month, for example, we talked about the parking security beginning. We talked about our point in time count. If you haven't, this is call to action for you. If you haven't signed up for the point in time count, please do that. The link's in the newsletter. That's our annual effort to count the number of people experiencing homelessness in the community. It's very important data, connects to our ability to leverage federal funding. And the other thing that I want to talk about today, it's in the newsletter, is a budget process. So the budget is one of the most, if not the most important thing that City Council does each year. It's a way to identify our priorities and fund those priorities. We have a survey that's open. Please take the survey. Critically important. That survey information really does help City Council set priorities for the coming budget year. You can see we have formal public input opportunities. One has, January 23rd obviously has passed, and of course there's a public hearing, but one of the things I'd like to flag for the community in this body is you can take the survey. That's probably the most critical thing to do. But as we get into the budget process, we will also, as the city, make an effort to engage with community groups, or maybe we could even have a budget person come to this meeting at a future meeting, but we want to try to get out and engage with the community to really understand really what are the priorities. One last thing from the staff side, and this is my last thing, we are kind of looking at the budget differently internally as well. And one of the things I'm excited about is as it relates to downtown, we're trying to take a more holistic kind of service-based focus. So traditionally, I was a department director. So traditionally, as a department director, you say, this is what I need to do, whatever, in downtown, anywhere else in the community. We've asked our departments for downtown in particular, let's not look at it from your department lens. Let's try to identify what the service needs are in downtown. And once we can say, here are the 3 greatest service needs in downtown, like what are the things that we can enhance, or what are the new service areas we need, and try to do that collectively. And then I think if we understand what the service need is, and then we can kind of leverage the different departments to try to meet that need. And you know, a lot of times I think when you're able to collaborate and leverage different resources, there's an efficiency in that lets you get more out of what is truthfully a kind of a lean, limited organization. So we're trying to take a different look at how we budget. We're actually using downtown as kind of a pilot this year, so that's kind of our big focus. And hopefully I can come back in a few months and tell you where we landed with that. So any questions for me? Thank you. I appreciate your time, and I'll see you again in 2 months.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Thanks, Ben.
All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So I'm Mike Lamb. I'm interim chief of the Asheville Police Department. I've been with APD for 26 years, and for the new commission members, I'm an Asheville native. So born and raised from here, and love hanging around downtown, and did when I was younger also. And so I'm going to give you an update on what crime looks like, especially downtown, but citywide as well. But before I do that, I want to give you a little context about what police services have looked like over the last several years. So when I first started in '98, we had just a beat officer downtown. So he did foot patrol and walked and knew all the businesses, knew all the residents. Of course, downtown was much less populated in the late '90s. Well, then that evolved into where we had patrol cars that just patrolled through downtown. Very little foot patrol, like no bicycle patrol, anything like that. So to address concerns of business owners, of residents, of visitors, we started a downtown bike unit. So those officers primarily rode bicycles, did foot patrols, and also we had a little electric car that they would ride around in also. And that was you had a day shift unit and a night shift unit. And that was about 6 officers that worked those units. And the importance behind having those officers that worked on a full-time basis was that they built relationships downtown. They built relationships with residents, with business owners, and with folks that just operated and visited and hung around downtown. The importance behind those relationships was that folks knew who to call, and also they built trust there. So those relationships equal community trust. We then, Chief Hooper created the downtown district. So it went from a unit, because the unit only worked Tuesday through Friday one week, and then Wednesday through Saturday the next week. So that's where the peak call times are, and the peak crimes occurs usually through those days and through the late morning to early evening hours. So we had the shifts to where those officers could be there to address those concerns. The downtown district created a 24/7 law enforcement presence specifically for downtown. And that was because the historical data showed us that downtown was a hotspot for crime, because you have a large collection of people. When I was a kid, we all went to the mall. We all went to Bowcatcher Cinemas and hung out there. And so there was nobody downtown. I was a skater when I was in middle school, and I would come downtown and skate because you could skate anywhere downtown. There wasn't a lot of people. Well, that's changed now. And so as that population has increased, so has crime and the concerns around crime. So unfortunately, 2020, we had late 2020, we had a lot of resignations. So what we had to do was make sure that officers were spread out throughout the city to be able to answer 911 calls. Because the most important thing that we have to be able to do as officers is to, when somebody calls and says somebody's breaking into my house or there's a crime in progress, that officers get there. So what that did was that reduced the full-time presence of downtown officers from 8 at any given time to 2. So it's important to have that context to understand kind of some of the struggles that we have right now. But currently we have 2 that are daytime, 2 that are nighttime, so that 24/7 coverage. But then we supplement that with extra duty patrols. So we have to pay overtime for officers to patrol the downtown area and show that extra presence and answer calls. So before I start, any questions about our staffing or presence downtown? Okay, good. Well, I'll jump right into it then. So looking at citywide violent crime throughout the city of Asheville. Last time we were here, Councilwoman Turner asked for a hotspot map for the commission to look at. So that's what this is. On the right is the hotspot map. On the left is citywide violent crime. So you can see it's back to 2018. There were 514 counts, and then that went to our peak for violent crime counts in 2022. The driver of those counts were aggravated assaults. Aggravated assaults are assaults that occurred that results in a serious injury, or somebody had a weapon, and they used that weapon, but there wasn't a homicide that came from that. So it's a serious assault that did not lead to a homicide. So that was the driver for both 2021 and 2022. That's a historic high for us as a city with violent crime counts. Thankfully, 2023, we went back down to 596. So we're looking at, hopefully, the trend will continue to where we're returning to pre-pandemic levels. Where we saw the biggest difference, the way we break down crime in the city of Asheville and look at it, is in the department, we do it on a weekly, monthly basis. What we report out is our quarterly reports. So there's the first quarter, that's January, February, March, then second, third, and fourth quarter. Our fourth quarter numbers were a lot lower than what the fourth quarter numbers were the previous year. So we were happy to see that those numbers went down in the last quarter. So looking at the hot spots on the map, those are all the number counts. So those are incidents that occurred. And you can see the bulk of those are concentrated within the downtown area. I've got another slide a little bit later on that breaks down specifically downtown so we can see where those are at. But before I move on, does anybody have any questions about this slide?
Do you have at your fingertips, and if you don't, that's fine, the per capita numbers, because our population has also changed from 19 to 23?
Yeah, no, I don't, but Brian, you're not the first person to ask that we have a density map also. Actually, Dana said, can we have do you want to talk to that? Okay. She said it would be interesting to see what our population map looks like compared to what our crime numbers look like, and I think that's a great idea.
I was about to ask the same thing.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, Asheville 2023 and 2018 are very different cities.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, well, we were looking at our overtime numbers. I think the Citizen Times is going to report out on it maybe next week. But we had a good interview, and our overtime, we had, I think it was, oh gosh, I can't remember the numbers exactly, but it significantly increased from 2020 to 2023 now. And that's, I know y'all remember 2020 downtown, it was like a ghost town. Nobody was downtown. So that, with the need to increase, but yeah, so that's, it'll be good to have that density map with it.
I have a follow-up question.
Yes, sir.
Also, is my mic on? Can you see?
They are on.
It's not lit.
Speak into the mic.
Okay. Yeah?
That sounds
His lights.
somewhat better.
Well, the light's off. I just want to make sure that.
Well, maybe if you could share, actually,
Okay.
sorry.
I'm wondering, I'm just thinking this now, do you ever record, the relationship between, an assailant and a victim, whether or not they know each other? Because I feel like it's easy to see crime stats and think, oh, it's dangerous, someone will hurt me. But if, a lot of it is, let's just say, friends getting drunk and fighting with each other.
Yes.
That's a bit different.
It is.
So I'm just curious, yeah.
Yeah, and and most of the assaults are like that, where it is, there's some kind of relationship there. Domestic numbers are completely different because those are a lot of residential apartment complexes, condos, stuff like that. But there is, when we look at crime, we follow the victimology. So we try to tailor our services towards which population is being the most victimized. So, and a lot of times, you're 100% right that there is some acquaintance or some relationship there. For robberies, before somebody typically commits a robbery, they know what they're going for ahead of that. So, but yeah, as far as random crimes, against just random people, those are very low.
Okay.
We saw a little bit of a spike in 2022 when we had those types of crimes.
Okay.
And they still occur, it's just not at the volume of what it was in 2022.
And some of these are domestic, too?
Yes, domestic is in some of those, yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, no problem.
Very good, thank you.
Okay. Wrong way. All right, so here's a look at citywide property crime as well. So you can see we've been on a downward trend ever since 2019. It started at 5,700 at the height pre-pandemic, and then you can see it's declined from there. So that's the good news, is that we're on a decline. The concerning part of that is that we also know there's underreporting going on, because when we lost a lot of our officers, the burden of reporting fell onto the victim. So, and then we know also in the last couple of years that several big box stores have changed their policy to on reporting, to where they handle it internally instead of reporting out to the police, because if they report out to us, that means that's employee time in making the report, in doing the follow-up, and then going through the court process as well, which costs stores a lot of money to be able to do that. There's a handful of big box stores that are still committed to that crime data. And then we also know that people are busy because folks are trying to work, take care of their family. So to take the time to go online and then fill out your own report sometimes is too much of a burden on folks, and we recognize that.
Chief, is there anything regarding the violent crime that is in your understanding, or I don't know how you do, if you don't have the data, you don't have the data, but is there any indications that violent crime is being underreported in a similar manner?
I can speak from experience. One example of it is whenever we had, so yes, it is being underreported.
Okay.
The encampments that we experienced in 2021. We talked to a lot of folks whenever we would go visit an encampment, because it would be a mixture of APD outreach workers and then like DOT or city cleanup workers as well. And we heard a lot of stories about human trafficking, different types of assaults that were happening, robberies that would happen, but because there's, you've got a lot of addiction, a lot of mental health and stuff that happened there, that a lot of that was not reported and not followed up on. So we know that, especially within vulnerable victims, that there's a lot of underreporting that happens there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good question. All right. So now looking at specifically downtown violent crime. So you can see the trends there. Actually, 2021 violent crime was a lot higher than 2022. And then you can see the hot spots there as well. Where it's a red clump is where we have a hot spot on crime. And you can see the different areas. Pritchard Park has historically been kind of a hot spot because that's a gathering place where a lot of people come to. And then let's go west of that. You can see that Wall Street area, Otis Street area, and then you've got west of that around the top of South French Broad, and then further down towards the towers, and then our three different homeless outreach providers, which are AHOPE, 225 Rescue Mission, and then Haber Street Congregational Church. So going back to Pritchard Park, if you go east, you can see it's along there at Pack Square, along Biltmore Avenue, and then that one just to the north of where it says Asheville is, I believe it's Polaco, is that right? The new restaurant, and then Room 9. So you've got, folks that are out late at night, they're drinking, having a good time. Sometimes conflicts happen there, and so that's why that crime hotspot is there. And then even further to the east, further down, you can see right at the police department's another one. But that is because of reporting. So this is where this isn't call data. So when somebody calls the police, that's call data that is gathered. So somebody makes a report, something's happening, then it's up to the officer to determine, did a crime occur? And then they take a report for it, and that is what creates our crime stats, is when a report is taken and then that report is investigated. So sometimes if a victim doesn't know exactly where the crime took place, and officers can't figure out, like there's no evidence that's found at a crime scene to where the crime could have occurred, we have to put headquarters as the reporting address. So that's why you see the hot spot there. And also that correlates too to some of what we see at Haber Street Congregational Church, Rescue Mission, and AHOPE, is that an assault could have happened somewhere else, but then when they start talking to staff members encourage them, you need to make a report about this. And so that also shows to like our underreporting with vulnerable victims as well, and then the high victimology within those populations also.
Can you explain that a little more? You're saying that this is not how many crimes were reported, it's crimes that were reported, followed up, and then confirmed.
Yeah, so it's...
But then, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, sir.
Then there's another gray area where if you think a crime has occurred, but you don't know what type of crime, it's still in this data.
So we definitely know what type of crime, and that's what makes it a violent crime. So it's like, it has to be some type of assault, some type of serious assault, a robbery or a burglary, something like that. So, crime stats are a little complex. It's not necessarily cut and dry, but these are all reports that were verified. So like, for example, yesterday we had a report of somebody shot at, I think, Ingalls on Long Shoals Road. Well, somebody saw an altercation, what they perceived was an altercation, and then thought they heard a gunshot, and then saw somebody running from the area. So officers got there, could not locate a victim, could not locate any crime scene, could not locate surveillance camera footage to verify that there was a crime. So what we did was we took a report, documented everything that the witnesses saw, but that became an information-only report. So we want to make sure we have everything documented in case somebody shows up at Mission or somebody shows up at Advent or Pardee, so that investigators have something to fall back on. So that would be an example of where an officer went and took a report, but there may or may not have actually been a crime that occurred. All this, however, is where there was verified that there was, like there's some type of violent crime had occurred.
Do you guys ever document that discrepancy? Like, we got 100 calls, but we only have 50 crimes?
Yeah, so we look at call data also versus crime. So this is what's reported to the FBI and under what used to be UCR, now it's called NIBRS. So we do look at that because there's certain areas where we have high call volume, but not high crime data that goes with that. Yeah. But that's a great question. Yeah, I'm trying to give you all as much information so you have the best context as possible. Any other questions about this slide? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Went too fast. So next slide is looking at property crime in downtown Asheville. So you can see this gets kind of fluctuated. The other trend that we saw citywide was it was high in 2019 and then it continued to go down. And within downtown, we've seen it fluctuate kind of up and down. It did drop significantly from 2019 with the low in 2020, and then you saw it went up a little bit in 2021, a little bit in 2022, and now it's starting to go down in 2023. And looking at the map, you can see it's kind of some of those same hotspot areas where you've got to the west there, the same locations. As we go further in, you can see it concentrated around Pritchard Park. And then that hot spot below that near Rabbit is Transit. That's 45 Cox Avenue, or 49 Cox Avenue. And then you've got Pritchard Park, and the rest of them are the business corridors through downtown. You've got Lexington Avenue, College, Patton. You can see up and down through Whitmore Avenue there, and then going further to the north as well. So, any questions on that? And again, just the caveat that we do, there's businesses are kind of have the same burden as residents in the bigger box stores, is that you have employees that are trying to, especially downtown, you have small businesses, so they're trying to run a store and they're trying to run their business, and so having the time to make a report is often, it just doesn't happen. So that's a concern for us. And it's like currently we have like 11 calls that we don't go on because, like, it's, for example, if somebody has taken something from a business or somebody has broken into somebody's car and there's no evidence behind, there's no video, the suspect's already left, so it's not in progress, we're not going to go to that call currently. So my concern is that that is a level of customer service that the city is missing out on because of our low staffing. So that's one thing I want to bring back as we increase staffing, is having that higher level of customer service, because that's what our city deserves. So on that end, eventually would like to have, as we increase our numbers, get a downtown unit back. That's one of my favorite assignments, was being Charlie District Commander, having an office out of 29 Haywood, just to be out talking with people, moving around, and having a good crew to do that as well. Any questions on the property crime data? Okay, last commission meeting that I was here, Councilwoman Turner asked, how do we compare to other cities as well? So our crime analyst, Doug Ozer, he said probably the best way to compare that, looking at data-driven results, is the North Carolina benchmarking project. It was established in '95. The benchmarking project allows municipalities to compare their service and trends with other participating cities. Benchmarking 2.0 launched in 2022 and streamlines data collection and offers opportunity for robust analysis, peer conversations, and best practice development. What you can see on the graph there is a comparison between, and the unfortunate thing is that all cities don't participate in benchmarking. So the ones that are up there are Asheville, Chapel Hill, Charlotte is listed, but it's not on the data grid. And then Concord and Greensboro. Of course, Greensboro is the highest. Their population is also a lot higher than what our population is. And then we are below Greensboro. And then Chapel Hill and Concord are right there in the same graph. And that's, they're so close together that it's hard to see them separated. But that's how we compare, at least to Chapel Hill and Concord in aggravated assaults. Now, and let me go to the next slide and show you how to navigate it. So I encourage you to take some time to look through this, because this does not only look at crime data, it looks at a variety of city services. So it looks at parking, staffing, cleanliness, public safety. If you go under the selected service metric, that will give you the toggle down to see how we compare to other cities. But that's the bigger grid. And same numbers with aggravated assaults, and then you can see, you can compare it to all cities, or you can pick 5 cities to do a comparison to see how our services in Asheville compare to other cities that are probably the closest to our side or size, or Chapel Hill and Concord.
Is there per capita data on this, and how do we even measure per capita when we have a certain number of residents and a large influx of visitors? Because we're not really comparable to like Greensboro that has a very stable population.
Yes.
We're closer to like maybe a Wilmington or someone like that has a certain number of residents and then a large number of visitors.
And Wilmington is on here, so that's a good comparison, because you're right. Like our daytime population explodes, because, I mean, it's like I have 173 sworn officers. I think 5 live within the city of Asheville. Everybody else lives in either Buncombe County, Henderson County, or one of the adjoining counties. So, and a lot of workers that work within the city of Asheville do the same thing. So we all commute from somewhere else to get into town. So yeah, that daytime population, you're 100% right. It blows up during the daytime and during the early evening hours when folks are coming to visit and visit a restaurant, eat downtown as well. So I think it takes, I'm not sure if it actually does have like a daytime population, a per capita population. I think it's just looking at overall city data, just the city itself.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, no problem. So the key takeaways are the implementation of data-driven strategies has been instrumental in achieving significant reductions in both violent and property crime citywide, with positive impacts observed in specific districts. So I forgot to talk about that. Let me tell you what, and so just the last slide for me. What we started looking at is something that me and my executive team have understood over the last several years. Is that there's a rule of disproportionality when it comes to crime in Asheville. So Asheville is we're a small town. We like to think we're a big town, but we're a small town. So you have a small number of people that commit the majority of the crimes. So like, for example, right now we have some folks that are using stolen cars to break into cars. So I know we've sent it out. I know we talked about it on the news yesterday, but like there's currently a stolen Nissan Sentra that's being driven around by a group of folks that are going into different neighborhoods, different apartment complexes, stuff like that. And there's been 2 different crews. One's been smashing car windows, and one's been just going through neighborhoods and pulling on door handles. The most recent one, they're going through and pulling on door handles and seeing what cars they can break into. And this is usually like 2, 3, 4 a.m. when people are asleep. But I say that because they've probably committed over 100 different incidents of car break-ins, but it's only like 3 people. So when you have somebody a small group of folks that are doing a crime spree like that, that affects the numbers, the crime numbers. So what we do is we focus our investigations, we focus our crime prevention to try to catch or prevent those group of individuals from further committing these crimes. And so what we found, if we follow data, look at who's committing the crimes, and that crime trend, then that helps us to be super focused, especially with our staffing challenge. The second thing we do is we look at where the crimes are occurring, and then we try to be there in order to be a deterrent to crime and then also catch crimes in progress. So using those two different focuses of being where crime is reportedly happening, and then focusing on the groups that we know that are committing, the individual or the groups that we know are committing the crimes, helps us to be more efficient, more effective in reducing those violent crime numbers. So, yeah. And then you saw the crime trends and how hopefully we're continuing to go on our pre-pandemic numbers. So, and the crime will continue to go down. At least that's my hope. Any other questions?
Can you talk a little bit about the partnership with the Sheriff's Department?
Oh, yeah, Megan, I'm happy to. So I've been meeting with Sheriff Miller over the last 3 or 4 weeks. We've had several good meetings, and we are looking at collaborating. The Sheriff's Office is proceeding this starting tonight. So they're putting 4 deputies downtown. And it's going to be on Friday and Saturday nights from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. So that is 4 hours on Friday night and then 4 hours on Saturday night. And we appreciate the collaboration, so that it's given that extra presence. Like last weekend, there was, I think, Yacht Club was shot into, and then I can't remember the name of the business there on Lexington and College, but it was shot into. And that was what we saw on surveillance camera it was a gray SUV, and it was just driving through, and you had 2 gunshots that came out of that gray SUV. So having that late night presence will really help, because we try our best to have more presence downtown, and we typically can with overtime, but then once we get into those early morning hours, it starts to get busy. And then our officers are sometimes pulled from out of downtown depending on what crime is occurring. Like if there's a shooting call, or if there's like a robbery in progress or something like that, that's going to pull a lot of resources all across the city to whatever area that crime's occurring. So we appreciate having that steady presence. Now the flip side of that is there's 168 hours in a week, and that's 8 hours out of the week. So we're responsible for the other 160 hours to provide that protection and coverage downtown. So I think the most effective thing that I have seen in my training experience is to have dedicated staff that know people and have relationships. Because even today, from when I was Charlie Warren, the district commander downtown, I still have residents and businesses that call me and whenever they have a concern, because that relationship was built. So that's why it's important to have folks continually downtown that have that context and understanding on what the expectations are, what each business likes, needs, who wants more presence, who wants less presence. Just having those relationships really help us to tailor our services towards this, specifically downtown. You're welcome.
Chief, what can we do to support you in your efforts to return to having a downtown unit?
So we've got I think just like the community support has helped out. I know like the Rotary, I'm so thankful for what the Rotary Club is doing to recognize those officers of the month. Like we have officers that routinely are saving people's lives, doing big investigations and stopping some of those big crime trends, and those officers are being recognized for that. And then, it's tough. I think the 2 toughest things that we're dealing with is wages, salaries and benefits, and then cost of housing. Because it's like for our officers that do live within the city of Asheville, we've got officers that, their kids go to the same school as their neighbors. They're doing community events, so there's more of a sense of community when you actually live in the neighborhood and within the city of Asheville. So I don't know what the answer is. Other cities do tax breaks. There's, I think what we're focusing on right now that helps is lateral transfers. So we're offering more incentives, more money to officers that have experience. Whenever we hire a new cadet, it takes like 14 months between the time we hire them and they're out on the street. If we get a lateral in that's already certified and trained, all we have to do is tell them what we expect of them, and then how APD works. Is my time up? That is the perfect, like 3 minutes is, I'm sorry, not because but it's just like that. But it's laterals. So it takes like 2 to 3 months once we get a lateral hired to get them on the road and going. So, so that's if you know anybody that's a cop somewhere else, that tell them Asheville is a great place to work. So so that can help us tremendously. Yeah. Any other questions?
Not a question. I would just like to say that there is an officer downtown that's new to the downtown area, and he's just done such an amazing job, really trying to get to know everyone, and also, within the businesses, also people that are in our unhoused community. And even though it's one person and he's not downtown every day, it makes such a big difference.
Yeah.
Just to know that he's there and he's bridging those gaps, and it feels like kind of back to our downtown unit days when we had Charlene and everyone that, felt like a little neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate that. Also his service.
Do you know his name?
Yeah, it's Bo Bailey.
Oh, Bo, yeah, Bo's great. We had coffee with a cop at Eris this last Wednesday, and when I got in, I walked in right at 8, and I see this table of people all surrounded around Bo, and Bo's telling stories to him, talking to him. So he's a good officer.
And Cora.
Oh yeah.
Officer Cora always makes me morale. So.
And
She's got competition now.
we have Hope now.
I'm devoted to Cora.
Yeah, Hope's at the FJC though, so she's providing specific therapy to those victims that come into the Family Justice Center. So we're appreciative to have both of them serving their very specific purposes. So thank you. All right, thank you all for the time. Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, our next item of business is the discussing the Business Improvement District process, and we have Zach Wallace with the Chamber of Commerce to come give us an update.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to move this if that's okay, Don.
It's all right.
All right. Good morning. I'm Zach Wallace. I lead the public policy work at the Asheville Area Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for inviting us, letting us come to the commission and give you an update on the process around a proposed business improvement district in downtown. Over the past 10 years or so, the Chamber's heard from various stakeholders an interest in starting a business improvement district in downtown due to the vital importance that economic engine, you all know this, that has to be prioritized, and the Chamber's committed to helping with that. The Chamber in those intervening years has highlighted business improvement districts on our yearly intercity visit, where we take folks from Asheville to another community and show them things that are working well, things that are not working well sometimes. Every one of those visits has included a business improvement district demonstration, getting to see how a district would work. Due to increasing concerns and hearing from more folks during the pandemic and the years after, the Chamber undertook a feasibility study with a consultant called Puma, Progressive Urban Management Associates out of Denver. Puma was trying to see, is there a clear need, is there private support, private sector support for a bid, and do the real estate economics work? Is this an area that could support an assessment to pay for additional services? That study showed that there was a clear need in downtown, that there was private sector support, and that the real estate economics would work. The study also looked at the Haywood Road corridor in West Asheville and the River Arts District. We continue to hear from some of those folks that they're interested in this process, and we've decided, from the results of that study and from the concerns that we continue to hear, that we should prioritize downtown. And based on that, the Chamber is working to facilitate and advocate for a downtown business improvement district. I'll take a step back. That's, I guess, a little bit of history, and kind of discuss what a business improvement district is. So bids are financing mechanisms. In North Carolina, they're allowed in state statute created by the municipality that they are encompassed within. A note from North Carolina, you may hear them referred to as MSDs or municipal service districts, and that's the way that the general statute describes them. Bids allow stakeholders in a defined geographic area to raise funds through a special assessment to pay for services above and beyond those provided by the municipality. Bids have been in the U.S. since the 1970s, and in North Carolina, there are currently about 50 operating. The process for bid creation in North Carolina includes 2 separate votes at council, so it is something that's formally created by the city council with renewals built in based on the ordinance that they pass every so many years, this financing mechanism coming back to council for reapproval. We've brought together a steering committee of about 30 folks representing residents, property owners, business owners, and other stakeholders as a steering committee. That steering committee, alongside 3 days of stakeholder meetings and a survey that elicited about 350 responses, is being used to shape a draft management plan. That draft management plan, prepared by Puma, will detail a proposed map, that geographic boundary, a budget, services to be provided, the assessment rate, and the governance structure. The steering committee had their first presentation on that draft management plan, and their feedback's currently being incorporated. The next step is to share that draft management plan with folks like the commission, with anyone downtown, with any stakeholders who have an interest. We're starting that with 3 public meetings on February 6th. We're working to get those invites out today, and we can make sure that you all are on that list. During those meetings, the Puma team will be back with us here in Asheville, and they'll be guiding folks through the draft management plan and looking for more feedback. Again, would love for you all to be there. We'd also like to have steering committee members come back to this commission and give you a presentation on the draft management plan. That's the real meat of what a proposed bid would do. Our goal is to hear from as many folks as possible and make sure that folks understand what this is, understand how they can provide feedback before going to council. Our ultimate goal is to have this in front of council before the end of this fiscal year, and that's due to you need to start the assessment with the new fiscal year. If not, you would be looking at waiting an entire year. Thank you again for allowing me to be with you all today. Happy to answer questions if the chair would like. Also happy to hear from you all. Who are groups, who are individuals, who should we be talking to? Who should steering committee members be talking to? Who should we make sure sees this draft management plan? Thank you.
So, let me make sure I understand a couple things. So, the chamber started this process, but is in the process of handing this over to the steering committee, and the steering committee will be driving the process from that point forward. Is that?
I would say that we'll still be providing support. We're paying for Puma, the consultants, to work with us. We pay for the feasibility study, paying for their support now, and we'll continue to act as a facilitator. Decisions around the draft management plan are going to have to be made by the steering committee and by the community. So I'm not drafting the management plan.
You said there were 3 public meetings, and the first one would be on February 6th?
So we're going to be doing, these first 3 are all on February 6th. There'll be one in the morning, lunch, and in the afternoon.
Okay, thank you.
After 5.
And so that's the first set of public meetings, and then there will be, and released today very soon, will be the draft management plan, and someone from the steering committee will come back to Downtown Commission to discuss that.
If you would like them to, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, all right. I'm just making sure I'm understanding some of the ground rules. All right, so I got questions, but I want to let somebody else go first.
Go ahead.
Are there any like funding sources in addition to assessed value that the study looked at?
For this study specifically looked at would a business improvement district work. No, they didn't study were there other sources of funds.
Okay.
Can I ask, so my understanding is that the bid is funded by a tax on property owners.
That's
based
correct.
on property value.
Yes, sir.
And the bid is managed by a board made up majority of property owners, which Hayden explained yesterday is different than other bids. But North Carolina says majority of the board that manages the bid will be property owners, but outside people can also be on that board.
The general statute doesn't describe what the board should look like.
But we imagine it'll be mostly property owners.
I think that's a good question that will be answered in the draft management plan.
Because my sort of question, when you say stakeholders, I think the way different people define stakeholders in downtown, right, is different. And so my question is, how does the bid process, not the bid, because we don't know that yet, but the bid process weigh the needs of all the stakeholders who touch downtown or are going to be impacted by the bid versus the weight of the people who happen to own property downtown?
Yeah. So, it's property owners pay the assessment through a property tax. We know that that's going to be commercial property owners, that's going to be residential property owners, that's going to be renters, maybe through their lease, that's going to be business owners, maybe through their lease. So the assessment affects everyone across the board. And so, as we put together the steering committee, we tried to bring in as many of those voices as we could. And I think that the public meeting starting February 6th, we want to make sure that we're hearing, those different views from, no matter where you are on that spectrum.
I want to point out
helps.
that too, that there's a lot of non-taxable property downtown, nonprofits, government buildings, and there are a lot of folks on the steering committee from those entities.
Is there an estimate of like how much money would be raised based on what would be an acceptable tax?
Yeah, so that would definitely be included in the draft management plan, an assessment rate and a budget, and that budget breaking down, what services could be provided. When they create a draft management plan, they start with, here's the services we want, here's how much those services would cost. Use GIS to look at all the property and say, here's the assessment that would be needed to fund that. That's a real balance, making sure that you're giving folks what they want and what they need without overburdening them with that assessment.
I have one more question, sort of like a data question. Like when you guys are doing these assessments and you're like weighing the opinions from all the different people, is there any like sort of rubric or metrics around like this percentage is going to be from disenfranchised communities, this percentage of people are leases, this percentage of people are in non-taxable property owner buildings, you know what I mean? Like are there rules that are being matched up with the data and the demographics of the community impacted?
The data that's the easiest to find is taxable versus non-taxable. The county tax assessor can show us that map immediately. Some of that other data is a little bit harder to find. In North Carolina, you do have to have a standard rate across all property classes. So you can't do one assessment rate for residential, one for commercial. It has to be the same across the board. I can get with you after and we can try to figure
I
out.
think he's actually addressing more who is on the board.
Okay.
And what populations are they serving, what needs are they serving, rather than how is the assessment done. Forgive me if
I'm
I'm
asking both, I want to know how many, is there a process being weighed with a population that's deeply impacted, but maybe they aren't as represented? Is their voice are we putting in metrics to make sure their voices are being equally weighed from a community standpoint? And just across the board, from income, from local to tourists, everybody's going to be impacted by this and these additional services. So I'm curious how we can make sure all the community members feel heard and validated in this process.
Yeah, I think it's good feedback for us to make sure that we're doing. I don't know that I have a full answer for you right now. Yeah.
Any other kind of general comments? So again, we can ask questions and give feedback to Mr. Wallace regarding this, but the chamber, while they're funding the consultant and kind of shepherding the process, it's going to be the steering committee, as I understand it, that's ultimately going to be making a lot of these decisions, and so that's the group that I really want to interface with. I'll continue to note that I have a trepidation about a lot of these, whether it's the TDA, the homeless initiative, or this, it seems like there's a lot of non-governmental actors that are getting tax money, and I want to make sure that there's transparency, that they're actually abiding by open meeting laws, and that we can kick them out if they're not doing a good job. Just that whole thing about we have these other quasi-governmental but not accountable organizations doing all these functions. My alarm starts going off. So that's just a thing with me, sorry. So anyway, any other general questions about the process? So our ability to engage, it sounds like, really starts with the release of the draft. We need to be involved in the public meetings as a group. We need to be talking to our constituents as a group, and then I'll make sure that we have a direct opportunity to discuss this with the steering committee, because ultimately I believe this is probably, at least this is what I've heard from different council members, is that council is going to be expecting us, since we're the downtown commission, to have a recommendation to council on how council addresses this proposal. Okay, so any further questions? This was very helpful, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I'll take public comment. I can address it, but I don't know that, do you have any further?
I just wanted to thank Dana and Ben and all the other city staff. We didn't get into it today, but there's another piece of this process that's ensuring that any services that are provided are above and beyond what the city is providing. And they've been so responsive and really worked hard to give us information.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm willing to take public comment on this issue, ma'am. Just come to if you don't mind, ma'am, if you wouldn't mind coming so that we can hear and record. Thank you. And if you would just state your name very quickly.
Leanne Richmond, I live downtown, so I wanted to know at what stage you would involve groups such as the ADA and the DARN organization that are engaged in the residential and business issues of downtown.
Thank you. It's now. So, I mean, we have basically AIR and ADA. Megan's here as Megan, but she's also, anyway, I think this is when we need to do that, when we need to get, make sure everybody knows what's going on, that we are passing along these invitations to these public meetings to those groups, and that they're not representative just by individuals, but by official representation, and that they have input into this, because I think that's where some of what you're talking about, groups that are not necessarily property owners, are going to really be able to exert some leverage into the process. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Brian, I would say that Megan and I both serve on the steering committee for the Business Improvement District. And the Asheville Downtown Association has a Business Improvement District Task Force where we're working on how we collaborate with the chamber on this.
Thank you. And we have a couple other members that are on that steering committee as well, even Michelle Nur, I believe, right? So it's not like this is not known to us and we're not talking to each other. I want to pull as much of it out into the daylight as possible, right?
Can I make a note that somebody brought up to me outside of this meeting, somebody from the streets of the community, excuse me. Because I serve on the ADA board as well, and then I serve here, and I know there's a lot of people involved in the steering process that are also here. Can we come up with a plan to address the fact that a lot of the people, if this body is being asked to make a recommendation to council, and half of this body is involved in the planning or the advocacy of the bid, can we make a plan to explain how we were able to hold space and not have conflicts of interest? Because we're gonna
Planning and advocacy are very different things.
I know, I'm just saying, I get that, and I'm on your side. I'm just saying the community already recognizes that half of this group is involved in the planning, and we're also being asked whether or not we agree with it. That is a conflict of interest if we don't have an answer to that question.
I don't know that I would consider it conflict of interest, only because without the business and ADA support, the bid will not happen. And so that's what happened the last time the bid came up, is that ultimately property owners didn't support it because property owners didn't feel like they were going to have enough of a say.
Right.
So the bid, hopefully in its creation, will only have a positive impact. So where we need to have these like safeguards to make sure that nothing goes wrong,
Right.
we also have to have the support of the property owners that are funding it. And so this is like, in my understanding, the bid is to kind of answer the complaints and concerns of businesses and residents of downtown
Right.
who don't feel like tax dollars are really addressing every need that we have.
Also, I'm one of 2 retail store owners on the steering committee. I'm not a property owner downtown.
Right.
So it affects me because our landlord is not a nice person.
Right.
And he will pass all of those fees on to us.
Right.
So,
I know I'm in the same way. I pay rent downtown twice.
so I wear a very different hat on that than a property owner. There's a lot of hotel owners on
Right.
that group.
I just think we, as a group, we have to accept that, I get the purpose of it, and I agree that on its best day, it's a really good thing, or has potential to be, but knowing that this process has so many naysayers, and everyone is confused, and there's wrong information coming out of a lot of different places, the idea that a bunch of business owners and government officials are getting together to decide if they should advocate for something that they're also planning for confuses people who will be impacted by the bid, even if they don't pay taxes on the bid, because they're going to come in contact with the people who manage the district. And I just think I, as a communications person, would like to have an answer that feels good to me as a community member, that doesn't hurt the 2 boards I'm on that are involved in this process.
I want to think about how to answer that. That's a really good question. And I think part of the reason that I wanted to go ahead and get a little bit ahead of the public meeting and have Mr. Wallace come and address us today is to start that conversation. For me, a lot of that has to do with just transparency and daylight and saying, they're on, you're on, I'm not. We still have, just being very open about those relationships, what we're doing, what our different hats are, and so that we're just really honest and open about that. That's part of the answer, but it's not the whole answer. So I want to think about how to answer that question as we work through this, so that we're very open about it. But thank you, Dana.
If I could just make one clarification point too. Government representatives aren't doing the planning, right? So we're trying to do what's requested as part of the process, and ultimately, obviously, city council has this, has to approve this, but it's
Not a government process.
it's driven by,
And just
private
because-
stakeholders.
And even if we say, city council, we recommend that you approve this municipal service district under the proposed whatever, council can do whatever they doggone well want to. So we're not the final say as well. I'll make that very, very clear. Yes.
I hope I don't speak out of turn, Zach, when I say that folks serving on the steering committee also potentially might not be in favor of the business improvement district yet. The Asheville Downtown Association hasn't taken a formal position in favor of it. I'm not sure if AIR has or will. So do keep in mind that these folks were a group of people who came together to learn about the process and then determine whether or not they were going to take a position.
That's good. Thank you. Very good. This was a good conversation. I'm not trying to cut it off necessarily, but I do want to keep us moving. I have questions. I know a lot of you have questions. Let's keep pulling our information together. I'll continue to stay in contact and see when it is appropriate to have the steering committee come to address us. It's like addressing ourselves. We'll have someone other than someone on the table address us, and we'll keep that conversation going. Any further comments? Very good. Thank you very much. So our next item of business is when I have to debate myself. Officer elections. So I don't know who's running that. Ricardo. Wonderful.
So, Mr. Chair, the nominating committee is happy to submit 2 names for the new board Eva Michelle Spicer. She's sitting next to me, but not poking me. So for the position of vice chair. And then we would like you to stay on as in the position of chair because we think you do a fantastic job. And, earlier during the meeting, you said that, you needed to learn some stuff, so you get another crack at it.
All right, so we have then, the nominating committee has put forward, I guess, a slate. Do we do each one separately? I think so. So we have, so for vice chair, even Michelle Spicer. Are there any other nominations put forward at this time? All right, then I guess do we vote? I've done this
Roll call
before.
vote. I was thinking a rep from the nominating committee should run the vote.
Should run the vote, okay. You're up.
So I guess I just say for the position of vice chair, well, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do.
So it's a motion, we have a motion on the floor, it's from the committee, there is no need for a second, so you can just go around and do a roll call vote, each person to say if they agree with
Okay, so
the nomination.
we have the slate, we have the motion, and I suppose it has been seconded, right?
Yeah, it's
So roll call vote, no?
Agree.
Are we doing one at a time?
One at a time or both? You want to say
If the motion is for both, I think we can do both.
Yeah, I think
Okay, so for both positions.
I agree.
Agree?
Agree?
I agree.
Agree.
Yes.
Yes.
Agree.
Agree. Very good. All right, your job is done.
Hack my way through it, but
Yes.
here we are.
Thank you.
We have you board.
That means you get to do it again next year, unless I can convince you to take the gavel. Very good, thank you very much, I guess. Even Michelle, I won't be here for the next 5 meetings.
I think we have an attendance requirement.
That's true. We do. So we'll move on to updates and reports. I am almost on time. I just want to note that. Patent Corridor Plan Working Group, I was unable to attend the last meeting, which I understood Stan was really awesome. Do we have any updates?
I was there, and it seems like we're mostly waiting to see what NCDOT says about the connector. There's some discussion about the Golden Triangle right there at Patton and Klingman, but it really hinges on NCDOT, which I think that they'll have their report next month, which is next week. I'm looking at these guys because they were in that room, but it's moving forward, hinging on NCDOT.
So, this is obviously the working group that is looking at what is going to happen when the I-26 connector redesign takes place. There will be changes in how Patton Avenue is basically developed, and there will be land available, essentially, when that 26 connector occurs on the other side of French Broad. And what do we do with that land? How is it developed? Public-private, how is it zoned? How public-private partnerships on how it's developed. It's a kind of a big deal. And I did see where council had formally requested that DOT decrease the speed from 35 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour, which is going to go, glad somebody's listening to us. That was one of the first things that we advocated for, and that will greatly, obviously, affect what kind of development, what kind of road that is. So
There's a lot of talk of traffic circles to also slow traffic, keep traffic moving, and allow bicycles to safely merge from the Bowen Bridge to downtown.
yeah, a 25 mile an hour urban street is very different than a 35 mile an hour street. They just are. So thank you. Very good. Design Review Committee. update?
The design review committee did not meet last month, so there's nothing to report.
Awesome. So you love those, don't you? Yeah, that's good.
Easy.
I did a better job on that one than the roll call vote.
You did great. Homeless updates.
I linked, the report is linked, but I will note that the point in time counts are included in a link in the document, and if you click on it, there's some really cool information that you can break down by gender, race, age even, but overall, the point in time count for 2023, I can't read this, was 521, and it went, for 2022, it was 637, and for 2023, it was 573, so we went down a little bit. And this is not related to homelessness, but it's related to the affordable housing, and I'll just bring it up. This Saturday on January 27th, there are 2 chances to make your voice heard. Community open house events, 10 a.m. in Shiloh and 2 p.m. at the Asheville Mall. Go and give your opinion on affordable housing in the city.
Very good. ADA?
Sure, thank you. So as you all, I hope you know, we are running our annual Asheville Downtown Stakeholder Survey. So I encourage you all to take that survey. We have questions around safety and cleanliness, of course, information or questions around the business improvement district and more. And the results of those surveys the survey will be released at our annual State of Downtown event, where we hear from the city and the county, and again, release the results of those surveys. That will be March 19th at Eulogy. Tickets will be available soon, and we hope you all will join us.
Thank you. We do not have a general downtown update report because we've pretty much covered it all with the downtown cleanliness, safety, and the bid reports, as well as Bennett also talked about the public restroom, and you just covered the affordable housing, so we're in good shape. Sage ditched us, so there's no city council updates at this time. So informal discussion, it was not the 2013, it was the 2023 annual report. I just now saw that. I've been staring at this agenda all week, and I just now saw that. I'm very sorry. That's on me. It's on me. I'll try to get
Go
better.
back to that vote.
Right. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. I'll open the floor right now. Here, I'll pass the gavel. There are two couple of things for future. One, a future agenda item. I had a member of the community ask us to begin or to address how the city processes sidewalk and road closures and how those affect businesses, and when we schedule those and when we allow those to happen, so that we don't impact businesses during the busiest times of the year. Ask if there was a better way to do what we've been doing, and so Dana and I have had a brief conversation about that. I wasn't sure if there was. Dana thinks there is, and so we're going to continue to collect some information and then see if we can get the appropriate staff to begin to address us, so that we can, there may be some things that we can do procedurally and in policy, and just from a feedback, kind of almost like a neighborhood meeting kind of thing, to try to figure out if when work is being done on a sidewalk, either by the city or even by a private developer, that they coordinate with and communicate with the adjacent property owners to mitigate and reduce those impacts to our local businesses. So that's on a future agenda item. We're also, we as a very loose looking at our March retreat and beginning to do plans for that as well. So if you've got any input, things that you desperately wish we would be doing that haven't been, please let me know. Are there any other future agenda items or things that we need to discuss prior to our adjournment? Welcome to our new members. I promise we'll get to you and give you a orientation after your meeting. So any questions, comments? Awesome. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.